Welcome to One Bite is Everything, the podcast that connects every bite you take to the bigger world. Here, we talk with farmers and chefs and thought leaders about the systems that shape our food and in turn shape our health, our communities, our environment, and our economy. Today, there's no guest because lately I've realized something that I want to share with you. Sometimes the most important conversations that I have aren't interviews. They're the messages that come in between. Over the last couple of months, I've been reading through grant applications from nearly 400 farms across the country. I've also been reviewing more than 100 farmer wish lists and talking with farmers in passing conversations that most people would never hear. I thought I was collecting proposals from these farms, but it was actually something else. Not panic, not failure, not even one complaint. More like pressure, a steady pressure that rarely announces itself loudly enough for the outside world to notice. Today I want to talk to you about the emotional temperature of American farming, what it feels like from inside it, what I'm hearing again and again, and why the future of small farms may depend less on how many farmers there are and more on how many people feel and actually are connected to one. One of the farmers I spoke to recently said something simple but striking. She told me that she appreciates that on this podcast I explain things about food and farming to eaters. Not because she needs the spotlight to be on farming, but because she's tired. Small farmers today are doing two big jobs. They're producing our food and all that takes, and they also are translating farming to people who are altogether disconnected from their food, constantly, at markets and emails, on social media, in person, answering the same questions again and again, correcting the same assumptions, carrying the responsibility of representing an entire industry that they often don't feel they belong to. When someone else explains it, she said, it takes something off her shoulders. That stayed with me. Because we don't often think the burden farmers carry, because we often think the burden that farmers carry is physical or financial, and it is. But there's another burden that's harder to see, the responsibility of constantly justifying their existence. Another farmer told me that she had been seriously thinking about stopping. Not dramatically, not with an announcement, just quietly reaching the point where continuing no longer made sense, where her dream became too much of a burden. And she received a postcard in the mail. Someone she didn't know wrote her a little note from thousands of miles away, and it ended with these two words, "Keep going." Those words hit her harder than she expected. It mattered more than it should have, maybe, but it did. If you worked in an office, in a restaurant, a team environment, you get feedback all the time without realizing it. A coworker notices your effort, a boss evaluates your performance, a customer leaves you a tip, and you know you did well. Many farmers don't have that structure. Months can pass where the only feedback they receive is a price comparison or a complaint about cost. So when encouragement arrives, it doesn't feel decorative. It feels stabilizing. Isolation amplifies risk, and recognition can absorb the shock. Then there was another farmer who said that she's exhausted by being lumped into conversations about industrial agriculture, accused of poisoning land she's actively trying to heal, assumed to be dependent on subsidies that she doesn't receive. From the outside, farmers look like a single category. From the inside, the differences are enormous. Different scale, different economics, different incentives, different consequences. But the public conversation rarely makes room for that complexity, and so small farmers often find themselves defending decisions they never made inside systems they don't control. Imagine being held responsible for the behavior of an industry structured completely differently than your daily life. That wears on a person. As I read the hundreds of grant applications and farmer wish lists, and as I hear about the postcards going out to thousands of farmers with love, I've noticed something, a theory perhaps. Small farms aren't collapsing because of one catastrophe. They are eroding. A broken tool that delays work every day. A repair that's been postponed too long. A season that almost worked. A year that was almost balanced. The quiet sentence, I'm not sure how long this makes sense. Not dramatic language, not headlines, just the slow math of pressure compounded by loneliness. And this is where something interesting appears, because alongside the strain, I also keep seeing moments where very small interventions change the trajectory of a day or a season. A postcard, a nomination, someone buying a needed item from a wish list, a small grant at the exact right time. None of these solve agriculture, but they do stabilize people. The wish lists are a good example. They're not symbolic, they're precise. A part, a gate, a piece of equipment that removes friction, that repeats every day. Grants are similar. They don't make farms rich. They change timing. And timing in farming changes outcomes. One of the most powerful parts might be the nominations. Nearly every grant begins with someone who decided a farm mattered enough to speak up. That's not a customer behavior. That's a relationship behavior. Which brings me to something that I've been realizing. We talk a lot about supporting farmers, but what keeps showing up is friendship. Not literal friendship necessarily, but consistent human attention. People who notice and respond and care before a crisis becomes visible. A healthy food system isn't just farmers and consumers. It includes witnesses. Right now, we don't have enough of them. So this is a casting call. Friend of a farmer needed. Not to rescue agriculture, not to fix everything, just to make sure someone doing essential work isn't doing it alone. That might look like writing to one, following closely enough to understand a season, answering when they share something difficult, not turning away, nominating them when help exists, helping to solve one small problem, returning again and again, small actions on repeat. Because the question may not be whether farms can survive the weather, the markets, or the policy landscape. It may be whether they survive invisibility. The future of small farms may depend less on how many farmers there are and more on how many people like you decide they want to know one. Thanks for listening to One Bite is Everything, the podcast that connects every bite you take to the bigger world. Today's episode wasn't about a single farm or a single issue. It was about what becomes visible when you listen closely over time, and how the stability of our food system is not tied only to economics and policy, but to human connection. If something in this conversation stayed with you, consider what it might look like to become a friend of a farmer in your own life. The stories we share here matter most when they move beyond awareness and into relationship. Through the For Farmers movement, those relationships turn into action. From postcards of encouragement to nominations to direct support that helps farms keep going season after season. You can learn more at forfarmersmovement.com and follow along on Instagram at XOXOFarmGirl. If something dawned on you by listening to this episode, I hope that you'll share it. I am also on a mission to bring in 100 reviews this year, so I would love it if you'd do me a favor and rate and review One Bite is Everything on Apple Podcasts. It helps more people like you find these stories and understand why they matter. Here's one that came in this week. It starts, absolutely professional production. And it continues like this. It's no wonder that Obi, which is the nickname for the podcast, is rated in the top 3% of podcasts globally. Dana DiPrima, that's me, is exceptionally articulate, informative, well-organized, and compelling. She not only compliments her guests, she makes them look good by providing well-researched context. And she doesn't just chit-chat, she delivers solid quality. highly recommended. Well, sheesh. I love to hear that, and I hope that it brings more listeners into the studio. I'm your host, Dana DiPrima, and I'll see you here next week for another episode. Yes, with a new interview and many more in the queue. Until then, eat like it matters, because it does.